Welcome back, Hustle Hoops fans. Today, the NCAA tournament kicked off, and the favorite for the number one pick, DeAndre Ayton, was in action tonight. He kind of ended the night on CBS for college fans or pro draft fans or whatever you want to call it, people who were interested in the NCAA tournament from a player perspective. DeAndre Ayton had 14 points, 13 rebounds, and 1 block in a 21-point loss to the Buffalo Bulls. And all the red flags of DeAndre Ayton were on display today. The lack of motor, the lack of defensive impact, the inability to carve out space in the paint. All that was on display today. And, you know, there were a lot of factors that went into why his performance was so bad or seemingly so bad, but most of it was squarely on his shoulders. He didn't play with a lot of fire tonight. He didn't seem to be very motivated to put in a spectacular performance on a national stage, which is kind of disappointing. It's not the kind of performance that I would like to see for somebody I'm going to invest the number one pick on. Regardless of the talent level, we've seen throughout the season that DeAndre Ayton is definitely talented. He's definitely a high-octane offensive player, a good rebounder, very good rebounder due to his physical skills. But one of the things that really was telling was that he had a difficult dominating the smaller Bulls, Buffalo Bulls, tonight, especially on the interior, on the offensive end and the defensive end. He made little to no defensive impact in this game. Buffalo was able to drive at will with him on the floor. He only had 1 block. He did have 1 steal. He was able to stay with his man, who was basically a small forward that did, for some reason, Sean Miller kept him on a small forward the whole game. He was able to stay with him when he drove, but he wasn't able to really challenge his shot when he drove, and the guy was able to score on him pretty much a couple of times. A few times he was able to score driving on him, and even though Ayton did attempt to challenge the shot, the guy was still able to finish over him or around him or through him. And the other thing was that he wasn't able to peel off his man and provide weak side help to protect the rim, which is why he only had 1 block, because Buffalo stayed in the paint. So, the way the NBA's played with all the stretch 4s, stretch 5s, and all this thing that's going on, it'd be kind of, disappointing to have a big that can't get back into the paint and challenge shots, or doesn't have the motivation to get back in the paint and challenge shots. That's kind of what I saw out there with Ayton tonight. He didn't have the wherewithal. His shot wasn't really falling. He was 0 for 2 from 3-point land. I think most of his points was on putbacks. He was 2 for 5 from the free throw line. It just wasn't a real good performance by him. And when you're probably one great performance away from having the number one pick locked up, you would expect him to come out trying to dominate from the opening tip, and it just wasn't there. He did seem to be motivated to dominate this game, and it was kind of disappointing, especially after watching Trae Young perform earlier in the morning in the first game. Trae Young kind of was amenable to the stage. He knew it was a big stage, and his team was terrible. Trae Young's team was terrible, but he did step up in the big moments and scored the ball and did what he does. So, it was good to see Trae Young step his game up on the big stage, even though his team lost. And I feel that his team lost to a better team in overtime. And the only reason they were in overtime was 100% due to Trae Young. So, Trae Young had, I think, 28, 5, and 7. Should have easily had double-figure assists, but his teammates were missing wide-open jump shots, couldn't finish around the rim. It was just everything that you saw on why Trae Young had an insane usage level this year. His teammates were basically garbage. There was not another NBA prospect on his side of the ball. I don't know what happened to Brady Manick the second half of the year. Guy looked like he could at least knock down wide open shots early in the season, but at the end of the season, he was not. I mean, especially even in this game, he was not able to hit anything. So it's a tale of two prospects that you have. DeAndre Ayton, who finished the season strong and vaulted his way up to the favorite for the #1 pick. And you had Trae Young, who started the season on fire and kind of got blitzed by crazy defenses at the end of the season. His team fizzled down the stretch, and people were talking about like he should barely be a top 10 pick. But when you saw the NCAA tournament come by, it kind of reminds you of why it's good to have your best player being your primary ball handler, regardless of the talent level, because it gives you a better chance of winning, and it also gives you a better chance of avoiding being upset by less talented teams. And that's the thing that people don't understand that's going on in the NBA. Everybody's trying to find, the reason why these teams are winning, and most definitely, it seems like the formula is, of course, it's a talent level, overall team talent level, but when your best player is your primary ball handler, it gives you just a huge advantage over other teams, especially if that best player is a top 10, top 15 player. As you can see, when you have more than one of those players, you just become insanely good. So these are the things that teams are going to have to take into account during the 2018 draft, because you have only, I would say, two guys, Luka Doncic and Trae Young, that have a chance to be primary ball handlers at all, or even the best or second best player on a team that can contend in the NBA. So the value of these guys is at an all-time high, and when people start talking about all these unicorns and stuff like that, you have guys that can you see the difference even with a guy as talented as Anthony Davis. If he's not your primary ball handler, it still puts your team at a disadvantage. Kristaps Porzingis, as talented as he was, or as talented as he is, and as good as a season as he was having, the Knicks were still at a disadvantage because he's not their primary ball handler. The whole DeMarcus Cousins career, as talented as he is not the team's primary ball handler. And these things put your team at considerable disadvantage. That's why I've always said that the top of the 2019 draft is much stronger from a NBA perspective than the 2018 draft, because the 2019 draft has plenty of guys that can be primary ball handlers on a good team. In 2019, you have R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, Zion Williams, and Romeo Langford. I think these guys all have a chance to be the #1 option and primary ball handler, or the guy who initiates the offense. Even though they're not point guards per se, they can play like Devin Booker plays for Phoenix, and initiate the offense. That's why Devin Booker, to me, has a very very high value player, despite Phoenix's record being so poor, because the rest of the Phoenix Suns team is basically too young to compete at this time. So as you can see, that what we're looking at with DeAndre Ayton, the favorite for the #1 pick coming into the NCAA tournament, Trae Young, the guy who for many has fallen from grace last half of the season. We're going to see how this goes as far as NBA careers. Which is more important? Insane physical specimen with talent, or a talented primary ball handler? And I would like to hear from you about that in the comment section. Which one do you prefer? Primary ball handler or the big on the inside dominating in the paint? Peace.